Howdy folks, TJ here. Radio cast for the Crash radio station number 6. I think this is the 6th or 7th issue. I forget, or episode. I'm getting old, I don't remember. I think it's number 6. Anyway, I thought I'd do something a little bit different. Will it be techie? Yes. Will it include Sinclair? Yes. But more important than any device, any knick-knack, are the people behind it. And I like to learn about other people's hobbies, what makes them tick, what they do. I only know many of you that watch my YouTube channel, probably the majority of you, through, and I'm holding this up on the front of the camera, this Sinclair computer, because I do a lot of videos on vintage or retro computing. So I know many of you have that passion, but maybe for some of you, you like making cotton candy, or one of your hobbies is drinking a lot of beer, making jewelry, fishing, working on vehicles, whatever. You probably have a lot of other hobbies. So I thought I would make this radio cast about things that I do other than retro computing. And I'm going to talk about that too, because some of you may not be watching my channel for that. And you'll be interested to know that I do some computing stuff. So with no further ado, the majority of you probably are here because of this computer I'm holding up in front of the camera. If you're listening to the radio cast, I am holding up my Splittie Next. And remember that after the show is aired on Wednesdays, typically on Friday or Saturday, someplace over the weekend, I air the video form of this cast. I was just holding up my Splittie Next. So what is it? It's a retro, it's not vintage because this is a new modern computer, but it is a retro computer that is very much in line with the Sinclair Spectrums of overseas back in the 1980s. An 8-bit computer that is so much more now and has so much more capability, and it's called a Splittie Next. What's that say? I love old computers. I love using vintage computers. I'm of the age that I got to enjoy the 70s of home video game systems, computers, the first for all of this. Now we take it for granted. Is it granted or granted? Granted? These old devices, I was a kid and saw them all for the first time, and not being a younger person looking back and saying, oh, wow, that's cool. Both of them have coolness behind it. But it is something different when you have never seen it before. For example, if a kid is used to the internet, looking back at an old computer that plays tic-tac-toe is not going to be mind-breaking. But to a kid in the 1970s, seeing a computer monitor, or in this case, a television that's black and white that shows what you tell it to show, is nothing short of a miracle. It's completely different. So I was of that age and bracket that I got to enjoy all these old computers. So what do? I would say majority of my time, for surely spring, summer, it varies. So I would say majority of my time period, because I'm in the house, is computing. Old computing, vintage computing, using 8-bit computers, 32-bit computers, 16-bit computers. And sure, all the modern tech too. I love tech generally, any of it, but I love old 8-bit computers. So whether it's playing an old video game on my Splittie, on my Atari, on my Intellivision, you name it, all these old vintage computers I love it. So am I into old computers and retro computing, modern computing that has a retro computer flair? Absolutely. So that is my biggest, I would say, hobby, and what I do most of the time. What's my second? Tenkara Fly Fishing. I'm holding up a fly rod right now. And if you're watching the video, you're saying, no, you're not. That's just a stretchy sheath that says something about Tenkara USA. Well, as I open this little sheath and I'm pulling out this roughly 2-foot long thing that says Satoki on it, and is a nice, the sun's not popping off on here because I already have general lighting showing here, but this is a fly rod. And you're going, no, it's not, TD. That's just a handle. Well, this is a Japanese method of fly fishing. On the top of these rods is a little plug that you pull off. And I just pulled off this little 1/2-inch plug. You know what a plug is. So if you're listening to the radio, a plug is something you stick in something to shut it up. You just heard me know nothing for a few seconds because I used a plug. But anyway, this is a telescopic device. So as I shift this rod down and find a little tip on the end of the rod, I can start extending it. Now I'm going towards the camera. This is probably going to jack up the video because this little tip is flying at you. You can probably see it wiggling. Oh, the video's probably going all crazy. But this is a telescopic device. This rod that I'm holding is a fly rod. It's a Japanese method of fly fishing. There is no reel. So how did man first start fishing? With a stick, a string, and a bug. As time went on, they created the reel. So fly fishing in general, you see people using a reel and a fly rod that they put together. Well, in Japan, they used the wonderful lightweight bamboo, and instead of having it telescopic, all these segments nested into itself. So you would have like a piece of bamboo, and they'd hollow out the back, and they would pull these little parts out of the back and put them together like a rod, like you would see in a Western fly rod. You get them in your little case, and you put them together. Well, in modern time, back in those days, that was pretty creative. Hollow out the back of the bamboo, stick your other segments, so all you have is this little 2-foot handle. And when you get to your destination, pull out the segments out the back, put them together, and you have this little rod that you can tie horsehair to. And horsehair, they would create this line out of. They would furl it together and make this little line. And on the end, they would put a bug. And they would cast it onto the surface of the water and catch trout in Japan. How crazy is that? Isn't that awesome? Well, in other countries, they did similar things. And there's been fly fishing for generations, centuries. In Japan, it was later learned that one of the early methods was called Tenkara. At least that's the name that they've applied to it in more modern times. So I've got this telescopic fly rod that I can easily throw in my backpack, easily throw into this little stretchy sock that I have, which goes into a nice hard case, which I can throw in the back of my SUV or car. I can stick it on my luggage when I go on airplane trips. It's that small, but yet opens up to anywhere from roughly 9 feet to almost 15 feet. This particular model is a 3-length rod. It can be fished at about roughly 11, 12, 13-foot brackets. How cool is that? A long fly rod that's telescopic. This thing only weighs 3.5 ounces. There's no reel. When you're in a mountain stream, like much of Japan is, you do not need a reel. You just need to cast a bug roughly 10, 15, 20, 30 feet away from your feet. It's pretty typical of most mountain streams, smaller mountain streams, and you can catch fish. So I have been doing this Tenkara now for 13 years, 12, 13 years. So a good chunk of my life. If the average male lives to 70-something and I'm getting near 60, that says something that I'm old. If you're listening to the radio channel, you'll see my videos. I'm gray, but I'm only in my 50s still, getting close to 60s. Hopefully I live to 90s. That would be pleasant, and I can enjoy Tenkara for many years to come. But I love fly fishing. I love getting out in nature as much as I can. Earlier, I said I'm in home most of the time. Aren't most of us? I mean, you go to work, and you're there half the day, and the other half of the day, you're either at the pub or you're at home. My wife and I don't really go to the pub, per se. We live more close to her in-laws, which are much older than we are. So we don't go to the pub. We typically are at home, playing with the pets, doing house stuff. And so, we're home most of the time. So I'm doing computers. But on the weekend or holiday or vacation, I'm typically out Tenkara fly fishing. So look that up if you ever want to. TenkaraUSA.com. Tenkara is spelled Tenkara, and then the letters USA, United States of America, .com. And you can learn all about this wonderful method of fly fishing. What's next? I am holding up on this camera, and I'll get a little closer so you can see them. It's about what it sounds like. Volkswagen air-cooled Volkswagen to be specific. These are little USB devices, so I got to bring tech into this. But this front one is a Volkswagen bus, air-cooled. No water-cooled here, baby. Although we do have a water-cooled Volkswagen, too. And a little red bug. These are both USB sticks. 8 gigabytes that I slap movies on. When we go on vacation, I'll put a handful of movies on here and use a little HDMI projector and project them up on a screen. Lots of fun. But I love old air-cooled Volkswagens. Kind of came to it late in life, but to tell you the truth, it's now been well over 20 years. So that is a big-ass chunk of my life. I was not into Volkswagens in the 70s, 80s, 90s. I saw them, and I remember one of the first cars I fell in love with in the 70s was a Volkswagen Thing, which I did own at one time, but I've had a lot of different Volkswagens come and go through my house. I have one left. It's the keeper. I decided to part with the other ones for both monetary reasons, space reasons. I wanted to get some other stuff reasons, you name it. But I kept my 1967 Westfalia camper bus. It's kind of my dream Volkswagen, even though I love the Thing and I love my single cab pickup that I had. They were in states of, or at least the single cab. I started working on it, pulled the engine, never got far into it. The Thing I actually did pretty good. The Thing I actually did a complete brake job on. Kept that one pretty roadworthy. Ended up again selling it. It was convertible. Wasn't practical for where I live in the winter time where it's in the 20s and it leaks and so on. So I did part with some of my toys. Again, when shit hits the fan, normally TJ gives up some of his things, but I'm not giving up my 67 Westie. So what is a Westie? It's a dog, technically, but Westfalia is a camper version of the old Volkswagen air-cooled bus. Some of them had nice little tops that were kind of a sunroof type of top, fabric that would open and you'd have your sun come in. And then later on, they started adding pop tops to them. Mine is a 67, so it's got a little pop top that gives you nice standing room in a small 4x4 swath in the middle of the vehicle. And they made a camper out of it. You can pop the top. It's got a little bed that you can open up so you can get to your destination, open up the bed so you can sleep that night. Go fly fishing, Tenkara Fly Fishing. I made a video, by the way, A Boy, a Bus, Tenkara. Now, you may want to watch that. It's a lot of fun. I take my Volkswagen 67 bus on a little day trip to catch some fish in a pond. Anyway, I love air-cooled Volkswagens. I'm part of the community. I am on thesamba.com, which is a huge Volkswagen air-cooled site. I've been on there since 2004, and it's now almost 2024. So for 20 years, I've been on that. So yeah, a big chunk of my life has been in air-cooled Volkswagens. I love air-cooled. I love going to Volkswagen shows that are all about air-cooled, watching the drag races. Did you know some of these damn Volkswagen Beetles, you may not think they're fast, but they do stuff in them that makes 0 to 60 in like 6 to 7 seconds. No, more like 9 seconds. But that's fast because most modern vehicles don't go 0 to 60 in that fast of a speed. 9 point something seconds in a quarter mile, not an eighth mile, a quarter mile. These things are lightweight, fast. Most of them are slow, like my Volkswagen bus, 0 to 60, never type of thing, but it's because of the RGBs they put on the back end to give it proper gearing, and they are slow. You go just about 55, maybe 60 on a downhill, 40 to 50 some odd horsepower, air-cooled. But what I like about them is they're generally, for me, easy to work on, easy to learn about. You can get on there, and in fact, I was just doing brake work this last weekend. So I love playing, and I'll say the word playing because I'm not a mechanic. Never have been, never will be, but I know just enough to get in trouble. But I have a nice little lift system in my shop, and I get out there and work on my Volkswagens. More work than actually pleasure driving them because I'm always doing something on them, and I'm slow as molasses, again, because I'm not a mechanic. So when it comes to doing things that may take a pro 1 hour, it takes me 1 year. So I'm slow. So I love working and playing old air-cooled Volkswagens. So those are the three main things. Aircooled Volkswagens, Tenkara Fly Fishing, and playing on old vintage or retro computing. There's other things I do, and there's other hobbies that I play a little bit and dabble into, but these are my three main ones. What are your, and I'm pointing at the camera if you're watching this radio cast, what are your three top things that you do that really symbolize what you are as a human, what you do for enjoyment? So if you go to the Crash Radio Facebook group, normally Sonic will post, hey, this show's coming up this week. After you view it, go to that link and post down below what are your three top hobbies. If you're on the actual radio station listening live, I tried to on that Wednesday join the chat that is in the Crash Radio chat and chat there while my radio cast is on, the 20 minutes or whatever it's on. So join there and chat away. Or if you listen and watch my video on the following weekend, post down below what are your three things. Of course, the odds are retro computing is one of them or vintage computing. But what are your other two things that you enjoy? Or if Tenkara is why you're here, do you like retro computers? I'm holding up my Specky next. Do you like old air-cooled Volkswagens? Or do you prefer American steel, Mustangs, Corvettes, Cobras? Sure, a lot of those things are cool, but I just like old and slow, kind of like me and my wife. We're old and slow. So, but I'm not slow in videos. I'm very fast. I can flap my jaws as good as anybody, and I don't use a lot of ums and you knows and likes. That's what, I think I communicate pretty well. So if you're watching this and you're from QVC, call me. Imagine me on QVC selling, oh, look what we have. A wonderful TV set. Only $19.99 today for the rest of the day. It does everything. It does videos. It does live streaming. It shakes. It bakes. I can do all that stuff. So QVC, call me. I'm getting close to retirement, so when I retire from Tenkara, I can come work for you guys part-time and make a little extra money so I can buy more retro computers, more Tenkara fly rods, although I know the guys, so I don't have to pay too much for them. And then Volkswagens. These are the ones that cost a lot of money. A Volkswagen bus in good condition, a Westie, that's drivable, that's in pretty good cosmetic shape, $40,000 to $50,000. If you have one of these that have 21 or 23 windows, a whole bunch of windows on top, over $100,000. I wish I owned one of those, but I do own one of these Westies. This one doesn't have a pop top on it. But yeah, I need some money to buy more of these things. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. Thank you for listening to the radio cast. What are your three main hobbies? If you're not here for retro computing, Tenkara, or vintage Volkswagen, why are you here? I'm glad you are. You must like either the way I present. Again, less less likes, like. Every other word that people use that. I have a periodic, pause like in Japan. If you listen to a master, they'll be going, they'll do the and then they'll go into it. But that's much more tolerable if you don't do it all the time. And it's much better than likes, So if you do that, listen to yourself as you speak, because you don't need to do those. You need to think about things as you're talking and compute them. You don't need any teleprompter. I don't have any teleprompters here. I think it might do relatively well, like videos. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. You guys all and gals, have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye.